We are pleased to welcome Adam Ernster to SBMM for his presentation, Marine Diversity and Abundances Throughout the Santa Barbara Channel, as part of our Maritime Distinguished Speaker Series. Adam is a professional wildlife cameraman specializing in marine life with a focus on whales, dolphins, and sharks. For the past 8 years, Adam has worked in the Santa Barbara Channel as a captain, wildlife naturalist, and award-winning cameraman. During this time, he has documented incredible scenes from blue whales, the largest animals on Earth, to vast pods of dolphins stretching across the horizon. Adam is also the media director for the Santa Barbara Channel Whale Heritage Area. His work has taken him from the Pacific Northwest to Baja California, capturing powerful stories from our planet's oceans. A graduate at UCSB with a degree in environmental science, Adam's footage has been featured in acclaimed productions by PBS, National Geographic, and BBC. His mission is to inspire awe and stewardship by connecting people to the ocean's wonders. And he's actually on his way to Tonga tonight after our lecture here to do filming of humpbacks, I think. So please join me in welcoming Adam Ernster.
Good evening, everybody. How we doing? All right, great. Thanks for coming tonight. Really appreciate it. And thank you, Greg, for that wonderful introduction. This is Greg's last year as the executive director here at the museum, so thank you so much, Greg. So my name's Adam Ernster. I'm a wildlife cameraman, and for the past 8 years, I've been very lucky to hang out with whales pretty much every day. I'm very fortunate to spend my days filming whales here in the channel, and it's quite a privilege. I've been fortunate to spend a lot of time following the whales. I've worked in the San Juan Islands, up in Washington State, where I worked as a deckhand and naturalist on a whale watching boat, as well as a kayak guide, where I got to hang out with southern resident killer whales. These southern resident killer whales are extremely, extremely endangered. There's only 73 of these whales left on the planet today. And I was really fortunate to spend a lot of time with these whales and educate the public about all the plights and everything that they're going through. So this is big L87 Onyx here. He's a big boy. I spent a lot of time working in Baja California. It's one of my favorite places in the world. From Magdalena Bay, where I get to film striped marlin feeding on big bait balls, to Laguna Ojo de Liebre, where I get to hang out with gray whales, as we saw, similar to San Ignacio Lagoon. Bahia de Los Angeles, hanging out with killer whales in the coastal Baja Desert. La Ventana, those weird-looking things on the right there are called false killer whales. Their skull morphology is very similar to killer whales, which is where they get their name. Just a whole bunch of diversity in Baja California as well. This year, I was fortunate to travel to the Seychelles Islands off of Africa to film sperm whales in 6,000 meters of water. Really a very unique place as well. Throughout all my travels, nowhere has inspired me more or felt more like home than the Santa Barbara Channel. That's not only because of the diversity of whales and dolphins that we're fortunate to see here, but also the abundances. This is a very, very special place right here in our own backyard. So really, what makes this place so special? Well, when we look at it from a satellite image, you can see the Channel Islands there off our coast, about 20 miles off the coast. And if you look at it, you kind of see that bowl shape right in the middle there. It's a very unique underwater region. It's relatively shallow basin. Most places off the California coast, you get to 2,000-3,000 feet of water pretty quickly off the coast, but this is relatively shallow. It only gets to about 1,800 to 2,000 feet in the channel. So in retrospect, it's pretty shallow. So take this bowl shape and put on top of that two very unique currents. We have the Davidson Current, which is a warm water current that brings warm water up from Mexico, and the California Current, which is a cold water current that brings cold water down from Alaska. So bowl shape, couple of currents, and in the springtime here, we get some pretty high winds. Those winds push out the warm surface water, which is then replaced by cold nutrient-rich water from the depths, And that allows the phytoplankton to bloom to such extents they can be seen from space. So if you look in that top right graph there, you can see the phytoplankton blooms. Kind of March through really September is when those blooms are highest. And this is kind of what that looks like here. Those creatures in the top right there, those are the phytoplankton, dinoflagellates, diatoms, cyanobacteria, a bunch of really long names. But phytoplankton are super, super important. We'll talk about them a little bit later. Does anybody know what this series of numbers and letters is at the bottom here? Any guesses? I know you know. That is the equation for photosynthesis. So these plant-based plankton are super, super important. They're taking CO2 out of our atmosphere, combining that with H2O. We all know what that is, right? They're using sunlight as a catalyst to produce C6H12O6. Anybody know what that is? Glucose, great, sugar, and oxygen. So these phytoplankton are super, super important. They're not only taking CO2 out of the atmosphere, they're providing us oxygen. And this phytoplankton is forming the basis of the oceanic food chain. So think of the phytoplankton as the base. From there we go to zooplankton, or eating the phytoplankton. From there, anchovies and krill are eating the zooplankton. And what eats anchovies and krill? All of the diverse cetaceans that we're fortunate to see here in Santa Barbara. So I'll get into all the different species, all the wonderful species we see here off the coast. First, if you've ever taken a trip across the channel, you've probably seen some of these guys. These are common dolphins, a really terrible name for a really charismatic species, but they are very common. They're found in all the world's oceans, all the world's temperate oceans across the globe, and we can see quite a lot of them here in the channel. These guys are anchovy specialists, so this is a really, really unique photo I was fortunate to capture of a dolphin kind of gliding through a big bait ball with anchovies. Super, super cool. This is the tiniest little baby dolphin you've probably ever seen. If you look behind it there, that's the tip of its mom's dorsal fin. So this dolphin was probably only about this big. I photographed this 2 years ago here in the channel, and this dolphin was probably no more than 15, 20 minutes old. It was squirming around at the surface. All of its fins were still bent from being inside the womb. You could see the fetal folds on its side from when it was curled up inside its mom. And its mom was just kind of pushing it towards the surface, making sure it could get a breath. So really, really quite an incredible moment. Super cute little guy. And this is kind of what those pods of dolphin look like. We really can see some incredible numbers of dolphins. Sometimes we'll leave the harbor and start picking up dolphins a mile out of the harbor, and you won't stop having them till the island's 20 miles away. Pretty impressive. This is a stampeding pod of dolphins. They're either running to something or running from something. We'll get into that a little bit later. But this is kind of what it looks like from the aerial perspective. The drone really gives us a completely different perspective of our ocean world. You can see our boat there. It's a 30-foot boat that we whale watch on here in the channel. But really, some of these pods are quite impressive to see. And some of these pods can consist of 1,000 to 2,000 dolphins, and we can see 15 to 20 of these pods a day. It really just goes to show how productive these waters are. Think about how many anchovies you need to sustain this amount of dolphins. It's pretty incredible. So stepping away from the dolphins for a second, humpback whales are my favorite whale. They're the most commonly sighted whale we have here in the channel. These humpback whales will typically show up in February, March here in the channel, and they'll stay here throughout the majority of the year feeding. This doesn't really look like a whale. It kind of looks like a sea monster. But you and I have opposable thumbs, right? When we got an itch, it's pretty easy to scratch it. These whales do not. So what this whale is doing, it has kelp draped over its head. And these guys roll around in the kelp patties to scratch an itch or have a spa day. If you went to a spa here in Santa Barbara, that's probably $1,000 worth of kelp right there. So. This is one of my favorite photographs I've ever taken of a humpback whale. Really unique. You can see the eye there, as well as the west end of Santa Cruz Island in the background and Santa Rosa Island. This whale spent 45 minutes hanging out under our boat and then decided to stick its giant head up right next to us. So that was pretty impressive. So just like the common dolphins, there's a lot of them here and there's a lot of humpbacks here. And you gotta imagine how much food is here to sustain these whales, to keep them fed. If you can see it there, there's a big old school of anchovies, and these whales are about to come up. They look like ants. That's how big this school of anchovies is. There's the whales there. But this school of anchovies stretched about a quarter mile across the ocean. Pretty impressive. These whales are baleen whales, and they are filter feeders. So you'll see here in a second them coming up through the bait ball. Wham. And these whales have ventral pleats that run from their chin to their belly button that expand like an accordion. You can kind of see them there. So what they do is they open their mouth big and wide. They take up hundreds of gallons of fish and water in a single gulp. They're able to contract those ventral pleats, use their tongue to push out the rest of the water, and that baleen hangs from the roof of their mouth. It's kind of like a broom, keeps all the food and the fish inside. It's a very effective way of feeding. It allows the humpbacks to get to about 55 feet long and weigh over 40 tons, which is very large. These are also the most active whales, kind of typical. When you think of a whale, you're probably thinking of a humpback. They're the ones breaching out of the water. This next maneuver is called a chin slap, raising its chin out of the water, slapping it down on the surface. Really quite impressive to see 80,000 pounds of blubber flying out of the ocean. They're also known for their pec fins. They have the largest arms in the animal kingdom by weight. These pec fins can be about 15 feet long on an adult humpback. So look at that guy waving his arms in the air like he just don't care. Pretty impressive. We're not exactly sure why whales do these big maneuvers. It could be for a couple of different reasons: muscle development, communication, and these whales are also very curious, as you can see here. This is actually a pretty small whale, probably only 3 or 4 years old, and he's just about the size of our 30-foot vessel. This whale is not being fed at all. It's not being attracted to the region, or we are simply sitting there with our engine in neutral, and this whale is repeatedly coming to the boat just to check us out, super curious. You know, they see this big rubber ducky floating in the middle of the ocean and a bunch of monkeys on it screaming and hollering. Pretty enticing. You know, when I first started working in the channel about 8 years ago, this was a pretty rare occurrence. Maybe 4 or 5 times a year we'd get a friendly whale like this. I think I've probably had 20 or 25 encounters so far this year. Whether that's because there's more whales in the channel, these humpbacks are doing really well, their population is growing at an astounding rate, or if they're just getting curious, who's to say? But it's pretty impressive to have a 80,000-pound whale look you in the eye. And maybe a little frightening. Looking right at us there. Gonna need a bigger boat, right? So this time of year in the fall, we start to see the humpbacks change behavior a little bit. This is a mom and her pretty large calf at this point of the year. These calves are 6 to 8 months old. You can see her kind of, something's bothering her a little bit. You can kind of see here she's kind of throwing her tail around. That's because there's a male suitor hot on her tail. So these male escorts are trying to escort the females down to the breeding grounds off of Mexico. You can see this mom throwing her tail at him. She doesn't want anything to do with this guy. You can see that here, swiping her tail at him, doesn't want anything to do with him. Girl power. But we're starting to see a lot of this behavior as well, kind of competitive behavior as the whales prepare for their breeding season. This guy eventually got the message and kind of moved away, so good job, Mom. So these are just some of the dramas that unfold every single day with the humpbacks. They're really my favorite whale. They're a very charismatic species. You never know what they're going to be up to. We've been very fortunate to be able to identify these whales by simply taking a picture of their tail. So I've gotten to know some of these whales really well over the years. This is probably my favorite whale. This is Scarlet here. You can see in that bottom right picture, she has a series of propeller scars on her back. So at one point, she did run into a boat's propeller. Fortunately, she survived, and she still to this day is one of the most curious whales, probably the most curious whale I've ever encountered. And that, negative encounter with a boat definitely didn't deter her from being who she is, because she still comes right up to us. She's a really unique whale in the sense that she's really only been sighted here in the Santa Barbara Channel. You can kind of see her coming from a mile away with those big prop scars, so it's kind of a mystery why she hasn't been seen anywhere else. Super, super cool whale. We've seen Scarlet a couple times this year. This is a whale, Flip, that I named a couple years ago because he had a tendency to flip upside down under the boat and show us his tail. This is kind of a more typical sightings pattern here. You can see a lot of sightings off the California coast, and then one off of Baja, California, all the way down there, and then one off mainland Mexico. So this is kind of a typical sightings behavior or sightings history. This guy's been sighted 22 times, and he was first sighted in 2020, so kind of a younger animal. Another favorite in SoCal, Snowflake. Snowflakes are really highly sighted whale. You can see sighted here a lot in the channel, and then down south off of Newport Beach as well. Snowflake is part of the smaller population of humpbacks that visits the California coast. You can see in that chart there on the left, he goes all the way down to Honduras. So these whales are traveling thousands and thousands of miles from their feeding grounds here in the California coast all the way down to where they breed in Central America. So why are whales important, right? This is just a big giant animal swimming around in the ocean. Why should we care? Well, it really goes back to the phytoplankton. This is called the whale pump. We also call it the poop loop. If you haven't yet, check out the Whales Are Superheroes exhibit here in the Maritime Museum. It kind of explains all this. But in a gist, if you look down at number 1 there, these whales are feeding at depth, right? They're diving down 500-600 feet to find krill and anchovies. They come to the surface, and at the surface is where they go to the bathroom. And their poop is actually very high in iron, very rich in iron. And so those phytoplankton use that iron to bloom to such extents that, again, they can be seen from space. And again, why are phytoplankton important to us? Because of that photosynthesis, right? They provide us with oxygen. Over half the air we breathe comes from the oceans. So this whole cycle here is super, super important, not only to the oceans, but to us as well. And it all starts with whale poop. So it's super important for us to protect our whales. You can see here, this is a whale's tail entangled in fishing line. That's one of the major causes of death for humpback whales, unfortunately. So what are we doing about this problem? We have a lot of whales that show signs of entanglement. Over 70% of the humpbacks that we see here off the California coast have signs of being entangled at one point in their life. There's teams up and down the entire coast that are trained to disentangle a whale if we see one. But preventing entanglements in the future is kind of the next step. We're not quite here yet, but you can kind of see on the left-hand side there, a typical crab or lobster trap is a trap at the bottom, a line that goes all the way to the surface, and then a buoy on top. The new idea is to have a kind of CO2 canister at the bottom of the ocean. You can have a GPS coordinate of where you left your trap. You can hit a button. That CO2 canister will release the line to the surface, so there's not actually anything floating in the middle of the water column. We're not quite there yet. It's very expensive to make this new technology. It needs to be subsidized by the government, and we certainly don't want fishermen to pay for these traps totally, but this is kind of the next step in how to prevent entanglements in the future. Okay. You guys ready to talk about killer whales? Killer whales are super cool. A lot of people think killer whales are these mean, ugly monsters. They're not, but I am going to show you them hunting here in a minute. So if you're a little squeamish, Close your eyes. This is a whale hunting common dolphin, which we do see quite a bit. This is a killer whale breaching with a piece of sea lion in its mouth. So, lovely day in the Santa Barbara Channel, right? Dolphins, everybody's having a good time until these guys show up. These guys are the ocean's apex predator. They take down dolphins, whales, sea lions, pretty much anything you can imagine. And it's really that first strike when they're hunting dolphins, just this first strike here that makes the entire pod flee. And so that stampeding I was talking about earlier for the dolphins, you'll just see the entire ocean light up with dolphins. Thousands and thousands of dolphins are fleeing. And out of this pod of, 1,000 or so dolphins, only one of them here is going to meet its end. So this is just kind of how life goes on the oceans. You can see these guys fleeing, and it's pretty impressive to watch these guys hunt. Here they are chasing the dolphin. You can see them. They operate as a pack. If this dolphin was just facing one orca, it could probably get away. But when there's a whole 6 or 7 of them, it's pretty tough. You can see it chasing the dolphin there. I won't show the entire graphic part, but you can see a brand new baby here. So it's also important for this baby to eat and learn how to hunt. So it's learning from all of its other pod mates how to do that. There's the leftover dolphins. And, for orcas, this is a very, very important time. Culturally, just like when you and I sit down with our families for dinner, it's a very important bonding time. So you can see this whale in front here drop a piece of meat, and this whale behind is going to come grab it. Grandma, can you pass me the mashed potatoes, please? Same kind of deal. And you can even see this seagull coming in and picking up a piece of leftover too. So not only are the whales getting a feed, this hunt is also providing food for a whole bunch of other animals. And after the hunt's over, it's time to socialize, right? Time to hang out with grandma, roll around, have a good time. So this brand new little baby is doing just that. Like I said, they also hunt sea lions, so got another hunt coming up. But in this clip, you'll see how chaotic these hunts can be. These whales are going to come in from multiple different angles, just flying in from different directions, tail swiping, and you'll just see them here coming in from plenty of different directions, just flying in. It's a very coordinated hunt. These whales are talking to each other. And they don't want to get bit by the sea lion either. Sea lions have these big, gnarly teeth. If a sea lion took out an orca's eye, that would be, pretty detrimental to the animal. So they're just as wary of the sea lions as the sea lions are of them. But, when there's 6 or 7 whales, it's tough to escape. Yeah, just coming in from all directions. Okay, this next clip, if you're squeamish, close your eyes. Whoa. So this is them ripping apart their chicken bone, I guess. Pass me a thigh. Pretty impressive to watch these guys hunt. In no way do I want to paint these guys as evil, ugly monsters. They are extremely curious, very, very friendly animals as well. When you see them in the wild and you catch them on a good day, this is kind of what this can look like. This was in early February of this year. Rolling around under the boat. You're kind of squeaking at us, coming right at us.
Oh my God, it's staring me in the face down there.
Oh my gosh, look at it.
I'll show you one more orca clip, because this was pretty cool. If you listen later in the clip, you can hear them vocalizing, and it's kind of funny. Again, these whales aren't being fed by us at all, acting completely on its own accord. Here's one of my passengers staring at an orca right in the eyes. See the whole pod in the background.
Incredible.
Now listen. You can kind of hear it there. They're like blowing raspberries. That wasn't me, I promise. So killer whales are pretty rare in the channel, but we are seeing them a lot more every year. That's not necessarily because they're hanging out here more often. We're getting a lot better at finding them. So over my history here in the channel, I chart every time I see an orca, the routes they take, which pod it is. So over time, we're understanding kind of where they hang out. And that's just by going out in the water and spending time with these animals. So kind of a chart here that I'm putting together to hopefully one day work with researchers and kind of, see where these animals are hanging out. Really important data. We also see the world's largest animal on the planet here in the Santa Barbara Channel. Blue whales are incredibly impressive animals. They can reach 90 feet long here in the northern hemisphere and weigh 150 tons, so 300,000 pounds. That's a blue whale next to our 30-foot boat. Pretty impressive. And these really are just, the diamonds of the whale world. They're so beautiful and really endangered as well. We hunted blue whales right to the edge of extinction, and we're still very lucky that they didn't totally go extinct. We still have some blue whales around, but they are definitely endangered. You can see how big this whale's tail is here at the end here. This whale's tail is the size of a small Cessna airplane, about 20 feet across, 25 feet across, so pretty impressive. And there's a blue whale next to our boat. If you remember the humpback under our boat, you can see how much bigger these guys are. And again, that tail is just beautiful. Where the humpbacks run into a lot more trouble with entanglements, these blue whales seem to have an issue with ship strike. You have to think these whales are the biggest, baddest whales on the planet. They've been around for millions of years. They haven't evolved to see ships as a threat. So blue whales do get hit by these large container ships. It does happen. It's just part of life. This is how our world's commerce moves, is on these big container ships. And the shipping lane here in the channel goes right through where these whales feed. So you can see here 2 big ships in the background and a couple blue whales here in front. So why do I do what I do? I'm super fortunate to take some beautiful pictures and videos of whales. I could stop there and be done with it and share pictures on social media and get followers and whatever, right? That's not what I do. The conservation, I use these images to help advocate for the protection of these whales, and I'm very fortunate to do that. One of the programs I'm super thankful to work with is the Blue Whales Blue Skies program. Becca Tucker here in front is one of my good friends that I work with for the Blue Whales Blue Skies program. Essentially what the Blue Whales Blue Skies program is doing is working with these container ship companies to slow down to save whales. There are 2 different vessel speed reduction zones off the California coast. One of them is here in the channel, one of them's up in the Bay Area. And essentially working with these shipping companies, providing them positive PR is enough for them to slow down. And so the science shows that if a vessel slows down to 10 knots, that is a whale-safe speed. If a whale is unfortunately struck by a vessel, the chance of that being a fatal strike is 50% decreased. So the Blue Whales Blue Skies initiative is something that I am so privileged and thankful to work with, to help provide media for, to film for. You can see the different tiers of the shipping companies that are enrolled in the program. 85% of the miles being traveled in the Santa Barbara Channel are being traveled at whale-safe speeds. Really, really impressive. Yeah. So you can see there in the top corner, 49 shipping lines are participating for 85% of the distance, 1,400 tons of NOx emissions avoided. So not only is this providing safer whales, when you slow down, the vessel is also way more efficient, so we're emitting less greenhouse gases into the atmosphere. And when these vessels are slowing down as well, the cavitation on the propellers is a lot less, so it's providing quieter oceans as well for our whales. So it's a triple win: safer whales, cleaner air, quieter oceans. So I kind of wrapped this all up into a film that you guys can absolutely check out. It's just on my YouTube channel. It's called Battle of the Blues. It's been in a couple festivals, and I'm very, very, very proud of this film. And here's a little clip showing the power of the Blue Whales Blue Skies program. This is Sean Hastings, the founder of the program. If you know Sean, you know that he's the best.
Yang Ming Wellspring. Yang Ming Wellspring. This is the Velella off your starboard beam.
Velella, please go ahead. This is Yang Wellspring.
What channel, sir?
You can go to 06.
Wellspring, this is the Velella off your starboard beam. My name is Sean Hastings, and I work for NOAA's Channel Islands National Marine Sanctuary. And I just want to say a big thank you to you and your crew for transiting at a whale-safe speed. There's a half dozen humpbacks in the channel as we speak, and we couldn't ask you to do anything more than what you're doing right now. So again, thank you to you and your crew, and thanks to Yang Ming for participating in the Protecting Blue Whales and Blue Skies program. Over.
Thank you for your appreciation. We'll maintain the same 10 knots and less than that. And we also love animals and whales.
Thank you, Captain.
So to me, that's the power of media. That's the power of capturing these moments. That's the power of the Blue Whales Blue Skies program. Really quick, I want to go back to one of these slides really quick. If anybody wants to be an ambassador of the Blue Whales Blue Skies program, that's what Becca heads over here. Please find her and talk to her. If you have a company that would like to dedicate themselves to shipping their products on vessels that are traveling at that whale-safe speed, Becca's your lady. Okay. Now, besides whales, my next project is for a species of sunflower stars with Rouvain here. Rouvain is on the board of a very, very important lab up in Monterey. Long story short, about 5 billion sunflower stars were wiped from the face of the earth in 2013. There was this giant wasting disease. These sunflower stars are top predators in the kelp forest ecosystem, and without them, kelp forests really struggle. So this is my next project that I'm working on currently. Super excited to put this into fruition. So what else am I up to these days? Well, I recently bought my first boat, my own boat, which is quite a big accomplishment. And really, my plan with this boat is to just film whales, take people, not physically take people out, but produce content so that grandma in Ohio can hang out with me and the whales at the same time. So that's my next adventure here that I'm currently working on. Another area that I'm super, super fortunate and proud to work with is the Santa Barbara Channel Whale Heritage Area. We were designated as a Whale Heritage Area in 2023. I'm very fortunate and proud to be the media director for this awesome, awesome designation. We really focus on these 4 pillars: responsible ecotourism, research and education, inspiring the next generation, and our cultural connection to the sea. So responsible ecotourism, if you guys want to take a tour with me, I am one of the captains for a company called Santa Barbara Whale Watch. We started in 2023. Those are some friendly humpback whales hanging out with us. And it's quite impressive, and something I'm super proud of is taking people out to the oceans to see whales for themselves. I promise you there's nothing like it, and enjoying the beauty of the Santa Barbara Channel is just top notch. So our research, we have a bunch of different research happening in the channel. Blue Whales, Blue Skies, the Channel Islands Cetacean Research Unit, Cascadia Research Collective is the biggest research for whales on the West Coast. And WhaleSafe. WhaleSafe is a program that we use as well that also tries to get the ships to slow down. We're just monitoring the ship's speed and reporting that data. So getting the next generation out in the ocean, right? This is super, super important. Hiroko Benko, owner of the Condor Express, really motivated this initiative to get kids out on the boats this year, as well as Holly Lohais. So we were able to get 2 different school groups out on the water to enjoy the whales. And if you look anywhere in Santa Barbara, you can see that cultural connection. We have whales and dolphins everywhere, whether it be the museums, whether it be Rincon Brewery down in the bottom left there with their awesome whale wall. Santa Barbara is an incredible place for whales, and it all started with our Chumash natives whose land we are on, so that's where that cultural connection comes from. And that's it. Thank you guys. I really appreciate you hanging out with me and learning about these whales today. I think we have time for a Q&A. Yeah. Questions? The question is, do the orcas share the cats with their own young? Other than their own young. Yeah, so different pods will definitely meet up in the channel. So sometimes we'll have 15, 20 orcas show up, and they will absolutely share food between their friends. So that's, like I said, it's us sitting down with our friends, having a meal together. That's kind of how that is portrayed. The question is, it's something that's talked about all the time is pushing the shipping lanes behind the islands. The big problem with that is San Nicolas Island is a big military base, and they do a lot of military testing back there. There's really nowhere for the lanes to go. This is really the only route that they can take. They've moved the shipping lanes a little bit to kind of get them out of the way of the whales, but at the end of the day, the whales kind of feed all throughout the channel. So the shipping lanes aren't going to move. Where there, places around the world where shipping lanes can be moved, that's definitely a priority. Here in the Santa Barbara Channel, there's really nowhere for those ships to go. So really, the next best thing is slowing down those ships. So the question was, how much does a whale eat a day? How many anchovies? How much krill? So there was a research paper that came out a couple years ago that said that we are severely underestimating how much a whale can eat in a day. We used to think maybe 3,000 pounds for a humpback, maybe 8,000 pounds for a blue whale. Throw those numbers away. We think now that humpbacks can eat up to 10,000 pounds of food in a single day. And blue whales, they think 16 tons, so 32,000 pounds of krill in a single day. That's a lot of Big Macs when you think of that caloric intake, but at the same time, you think of a weight of a blue whale, 300,000 pounds. It's kind of comparative to their body weight. And really, these whales need to pack on the pounds during the feeding season so they can make those lengthy migrations down to their breeding grounds. So the question was, or the statement was that blue whales look a lot more slim and sleek than maybe the humpbacks. There is definitely an evolutionary advantage to that. There was another research paper that recently came out that compared humpback whales to fin whales and blue whales, and they kind of have different responses. If a humpback whale is attacked by a pod of orcas, they're big, brawny, they're ready to fight. Blue whales and fin whales, they don't have much to fight with. They don't have those big pec fins. They don't really have strong tails. So their avoidance behavior is flight. So they are trying to get away. And that really, those orcas have pushed those evolutions along throughout history. I was able to see that firsthand by watching these whales hunt whales, these killer whales hunt whales, it's quite impressive to see those blue whales and fin whales retreating from those orcas. So, yeah. Are the female whales as intelligent as the male whales? I would argue the female whales are probably smarter. I think if the world was run by females, it'd be a completely different world, probably for the better. You know, in the whale world, females are typically a lot bigger than the males. They, think about it, when you are pushing out a 25 foot long baby, you got to be a little bit bigger. So I go girls. That's my answer. Sea Shepherd. Sea Shepherd is an organization that was founded by Paul Watson. They have always throughout history kind of done things their own way, which I think can be very powerful. At the same time, it can be a little bit reckless. But I will absolutely say that Sea Shepherd's missions around the globe, whether it's to stop whaling, to stop illegal fishing, they're definitely putting their money where their mouth is, and they're in the right areas at the right time. Paul Watson has since stepped aside and created his own foundation. So I definitely agree with what Sea Shepherd is doing, and everything we can do to protect our oceans is a positive thing. Great question. So why do these whales migrate? There's plenty of food here for them. Why are they going down south? So these whales are migrating to Central America, to Mexico, to have their babies. They rear their babies in the warm water, and that warm water kind of helps them float a little bit when they're first born, and that's kind of the reason they migrate all the way down there. That's where they breed as well. They go through these big breeding, mating rituals, and they migrate thousands of miles to do that, and then they come back here to the California coast to feed. Mid-September is actually a great month to see orcas in the San Juan Islands. I always say that in order to find these whales, in order to find these incredible natural spectacles, you need a fast boat. You need to cover distance, you need to put in that time. Sailboats are a little slow. So it just makes it a little bit more difficult. Like there's some days here in the channel where I'll cover 70 or 80 miles in 3 hours. And that's because we have a fast boat, and sometimes the whales are really, really far out there. So September is a great month. If you book a whale watching trip in the San Juan Islands in September, there's a pretty high likelihood that you're going to find some orcas. Yeah, so the question is, how do you decide when to use your camera or use your drone to film? Instinct, I guess, is my best answer. When you spend so much time out there, you can kind of predict the animal's behavior, at least a little bit, right? These are completely wild animals, so you can't predict what they're doing. But spending time with them, you can learn their behavior a little bit and see when to use, stabilized camera systems to take pictures, to fly the drone, to do different things. So the more time you spend out there, I think the more in tune you get with the animals. Yeah, so the question is, why don't these whales, when they're being attacked by orcas, dive? Why don't they just dive deep and get out of there? Well, orcas have echolocation, so they can really hone in on where these whales are coming from. And when you're coming back up from a really, really long dive, you're kind of tired. These whales are tired. They don't have a lot of breath. They need to kind of stay at the surface to maintain that breath. If they're down for too long, they run out of breath, and that's a bad situation to be in. We've seen orcas hunting blue whales, and the blue whales are just trying to get out of there, trying to use their stamina to outrun the orcas, and that's really their only line of defense. Humpbacks are big and brawny, and they can fight them and push them off. But yeah, the diving is, I get that question a lot. You'd think it's a very simple thing, just dive and get out of there, but the orcas will kind of just wait for them. I wouldn't say they're more curious. They don't necessarily. Oh yeah. So the question is, these big vessels have some sort of acoustic signature that you think the whales would be able to detect. There is a lot of research going into that, so I might not be as adept to answer that question. But from my understanding, these whales don't necessarily see these ships as these big threats, right? They haven't evolved with these giant container ships. These giant container ships have been around for 100 years. Some of these whales are older than these ships are. So when you think about their behavior, they don't necessarily see these ships as a threat. In the United States, it's not technically illegal to swim with whales, but it's severely frowned upon. These whales are protected under the Marine Mammal Protection Act as well as the Endangered Species Act. In those acts, it says you cannot change a whale's behavior, whatever that means to you. It can mean something different to you and I. I have been fortunate to swim with whales. That's why I'm going to Tonga in 3 hours. It's legal there. The whales actually come up to you. In terms of touching whales, San Ignacio Lagoon, that the Maritime Museum hosts trips for, and I go down to a different lagoon as well. The gray whales, it's really interesting. These gray whales breed in these warm water lagoons, and the whalers back in the day used to shut off the entrance to the lagoons and just start slaughtering whales. Nowadays, when you go there, these whales have been protected since the 60s. These whales will come right up to you. It's really, Greg can speak to it. It's one of the most intimate interactions you can have with Mother Nature. To have a 45-foot whale come right up to you and look you in the eye. And yeah, you can scratch them and pet them. It's really a completely one-of-one experience, and they're completely wild animals, so very, very unique. Yeah, so there's been a big story the past couple of years of killer whales messing with boats or attacking boats in the Strait of Gibraltar off of Portugal. We definitely have not seen that here. As that one video you saw, the whales were kind of swimming under us. They weren't attacking us or anything. They were super curious. In my opinion, and the researchers that I've talked to, killer whales are really good at culturally transmitting behavior. A couple years ago, we saw in the Pacific Northwest, one killer whale decided it would be a great day to wear a salmon hat. Put a salmon on top of its head and swim around with a salmon on top of its head. The next day, they were all doing it. So really, really interesting. They're able to culturally transmit those behaviors. So what I think that is, in the Strait of Gibraltar, one whale found out that if you mess with a boat's rudder, all the monkeys on board go crazy and start hooting and hollering at you, and it's really fun. And once you teach one whale to do it, they all start doing it. So that's my theory on that, and definitely some of the opinions of researchers I've talked to. So whales were protected internationally in the 70s. The vast majority of countries no longer hunt whales. There are a few that still do. Japan is one of them, Norway is one of them, and Iceland. So Japan used to go down to the Antarctic feeding grounds and hunt whales there. They're no longer allowed to do that. They are only allowed to hunt whales in their waters. That's their choice. I certainly don't agree with it, but they are now only really affecting their own whale populations. They aren't affecting our whales. For certainly our whales don't go there, so yeah. Thanks, guys. Really appreciate your time.